Relying on your pension is probably one of the most financially irresponsible things you could do. Let me show you how to take retirement into your own hands. Relying on your pension is not going to give you the retirement of your dreams. Unfortunately, most people retire broke with less than £1,000 in the bank account. And it's nothing to do with how much money you earn. It's nothing to do with how much money you spent during your career. It's to do with poor planning. Planning prepares for success. I want to show you how you can retire with financial freedom. In the last 10 years, I've gone from minus 33 grand in consumer debt, credit cards, personal loans. Fast forward to now, over 20 million pound in my portfolio, over 100 properties, and a life of financial abundance. But it's not about me, it's about you, it's about your retirement. And by the way, often what happens is the closer you get to retirement age, the more you think about retirement, but the least you can do about it. The younger you start taking action, the better. The other day I was sat with my nan, Ange, who's in her 70s now, to sit and think about what retirement looks like. And we discussed that the average retirement gives you under £5,000 a year. That's under £200 a week. And I don't know the last time you did your weekly shop. It's not enough to live on. The average pension pot at retirement hitting between 50 and 60 grand. For men, it's closer to 76,000. And I'm sorry, ladies, the average for you is 42,000. Now, I don't know when you're planning to retire, but let's say it's at 67 and you want a modest lifestyle, that pot on average will give you between £3,000 and £5,000 a year. Now, again, I don't know how old you are watching this right now, but let's say retirement is 20 years from now. 5 grand a year is going to mean something very different, with the average person running out in under 10 years. You've got to stop focusing on the economy. You've got to start focusing on your economy and start to take control. So what does your retirement look like and when? Well, first things first, what does comfortable retirement look like for you? To map this out, we need to start defining what sort of lifestyle you actually want. So you want to be asking yourself, where do I want to live? Is it in the UK? Is it abroad? Is it downsizing? Is it keeping in the bigger house once the kids have moved out? How often do you want to travel? Holidays, weekend trips, visiting family, your hobbies, your activities. What are you going to spend? And make note of all of this, by the way. If you want to play at the nice golf club down the road, you need to factor that into your retirement plan. Do I want to help the children and grandchildren financially? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you want some luxury cars, some big trips. Maybe it's more comfort for you. So what you need to do, and this is super important, is start with the end in mind. A lot of people just have, what's your figure? More. And so, well, that's great. That's a good, ambitious mindset to have. But where is there? You need to put your flag in the ground. You need to get your destination. You would never get into a taxi and say, drive. You need to understand where you're going in order to know when you've got there. And the great thing about money is if you know you're going to need 6 grand a month to retire really comfortably to tick all of your boxes, once you get to 6 grand a month, you can take that pressure off of yourself. So before we even break down to how we get the money in the first place, understand where is there, where's your destination. I'm going to give you a top tip to add into this. Add retirement specific costs. I think this is really it's a bit of a unique situation that none of us really know what it's going to be like until we're there. But one of the conversations that I had with my nan, old Ange, she won't like me saying old Ange, by the way, but me and my nan, is she said the biggest shock to her system was not realizing the void that comes up. So even now, she retired about 10 years ago, she still wakes up in the morning getting ready for work. And it's a really weird thing imagining that, going from a busy working professional to waking up and there's nothing to do. And so it's really important, I think, to plan ahead for things you're now going to do to fill that time. Because when you come to retirement, not only are you having less money, you now have way more time on your hands, which is another way of spending it. So just have a think about those retirement specific hobbies. In 2024, the PSLA Retirement Living Standards predicted the minimum, and I can't even say this figure without smirking. The minimum retirement lifestyle is £14,000 a year. When the fuck have you ever only spent 14 grand a year? I think that's fine if you've got everything paid off, right? Maybe not, but anyway, 14k a year if you're single, 22k a year if you're in a couple. For a moderate lifestyle, whatever that means, I imagine more than existing is 31k a year for a couple, and a comfortable lifestyle, 43 to 50k a year as a couple. Now, personally, I think mine's going to be a little bit more than 50k a year, but you do you. There is no right or wrong. So let's say you're planning in 20 years from today. Well, 40k might need to be very different. Now, this is the scary thing. Inflation, on average, will impact a doubling every 15 to 20 years. What does that mean? It means that whatever the number is today, for every decade, you probably need to add on about 70%. So just rough numbers, 40k will end up becoming, over a 20-year period, more like 80 to 100,000 pounds in real terms. That's kind of scary. Inflation's a bit of an annoyance because it doesn't really mean anything in your day-to-day. If inflation's 2% a year and you've got 100 grand in your bank, it's not like the bank's nicking 2 grand a year from you. What it means is everything costs 2% more. And so you need to factor that in when it comes to retirement. So now we know the figure and you just shat your pants, which isn't meant to happen until you retire. Let's start planning the portfolio around this. Let's talk strategy. We're going to narrow it down to my 4 favorites. First of all, boring vanilla buy-to-lets. You're buying a property, you're tarting it up as turnkey as it gets, and you're going to rent it to a family that's going to make your house their home. The benefit of this is incredibly low risk, incredibly simple to understand, and it's ideal for retirement cash flow. Next is BRR, buy, refurbish, refinance. Very similar to buy-to-let, but we're going to buy a slightly run-down property, spend more on the refurbishment to increase the value, and then we're going to get a new mortgage on the property at the higher value, which releases money back into your bank. The benefit of this is you get more bang for your buck because you're going to get more money back, so you can go again and again a few times. The downside, of course, is increased risk, so you need to know what you're doing. Next is HMOs, House of Multiple Occupancy. I love this. Essentially, it's 3 or more unrelated parties living in the same property. They pay a reduced rent based on if they were to rent out the house, so they're renting a room instead, but there's 4, 5, 6 of them. The upside, fairly obvious, more money, theoretically, at least from a cash flow perspective. The downside is you've got 4 to 6 people living there instead of 1. You can imagine the management challenges and, of course, the maintenance, the wear and tear that comes with them. They're not the most retirement friendly, but if you've got some years in you and you can learn it and outsource effectively, it really could be a good cash flow. Less property, more money. And finally, the highest volatility, highest risk, but theoretically way higher cash flow is Airbnb or service accommodation. So this is where you don't have a tenant, you have a guest and they're renting per night. Way higher cash flow, as I said, in theory, but way more complex in terms of booking fees, VAT to be paying, turnover costs, and of course, management intensive. So it's really important that you get it right, and it's all going to depend on what time you've got available, your skill set and your mindset of how proactive you can be in outsourcing these strategies. Combining the right investment strategy with the right location is absolutely key. My personal approach has always been to balance capital growth that I'm getting from my investments with a decent yield. And to find this steady balance, locations in the northwest of the UK and Yorkshire tend to be the most stable. Financial planning. As we scale a portfolio, the financial planning of the portfolio is so important when it comes to a happy retirement strategy. And let's start with my favorite subject, tax. I've got a great relationship with the tax man. He likes me, I hate him. All right, so we're gonna look at limited companies, personal ownership, and trust. So if you own property in your personal name, it's way simpler. The accountant's life is much easier, which means you're paying lower fees, but you're going to pay the most tax. Why is that a reality? Well, because you can't be tracked as effectively, which the government doesn't like, and of course, it's easier to change the rules on you. Now, for me, I don't like owning anything in my personal name. It's worth saying I'm not qualified to give you financial advice, so none of this is that. It's just my opinion. In short, very unlikely it's going to make sense you owning stuff in your personal name. Number 2, limited company. Limited company is a bit more complex, there's a bit more paperwork, but it is way better for scaling and way better for long-term tax efficiency and inheritance planning. Because if you're getting to that age where you're thinking, probably going to pop my clogs at some point over the next couple of decades, and you've got kids, you can start bringing them into the company, getting you out of the company, and inheritance tax can be a thing of the past, not a part of the future. Now, inheritance tax is something we really want to be thinking about, because if there's one thing that you can guarantee is two things: death and taxes. Death and taxes, and by fuck, the government likes coming to you for it. So, how can we make sure that we're not triggering inheritance tax bills? Well, there's really clever structures within a limited company and trust, which I'm not going to deep dive into this. Talk to your accountant, but you can be really clever with how you structure those, so you can say thank you but fuck you to the tax man on your way out. Next is capital gains tax. Selling properties can trigger capital gains unless it's planned effectively. Now, capital gains tax is a personal tax, not a company tax. It's really important to understand that, and I'll just leave you with this. Capital gains is in your personal name, and you can't expense against yourself in a personal name. In a limited company, you have corporation tax, not capital gains tax. But the cool thing about owning a company is many things can be considered a legitimate expense. And when you have a legitimate expense, you make less profit and therefore pay less tax. But talk to your accountant. As I said, I am not financially qualified. But honestly, a good accountant can save you 6 figures or 7 figures in the long term. Tax is boring, it is painful, but it is a really good thing to learn, because when you understand tax, you can mitigate it legally. Next, I want to go into mortgage planning. In your 30s to 50s, interest-only buy-to-let mortgages maximize your cash flow and your growth potential. But when you're getting a little bit older, dependent on your retirement plans and your legacy plans, you might want to rethink how you approach this, and it might be time to think about repayments on those. Now, again, not financial advice, but I actually do not think repayment mortgages ever make sense. The reason for that is because you can pay down up to 10% of your mortgage without penalty anyway. And so I like the flexibility. So personally, I'll always have interest only. But if you're beyond, I'd say 55, 60, maybe you want to start thinking about that extra cash flow that you might not be using right now and start chipping away at that so you've got less debt. Now, personally, this is going to be dependent about legacy as well, because if my kids or grandkids are going to inherit it once I've popped my clogs, then hopefully I'm going to educate them well enough on how to run the portfolio, and debt actually is your friend, not your enemy. But things to think about there. So what to reflect on? Number one, how many years of the mortgage are going to be left once you've retired? Do you plan to pay them off? Do you plan to refinance? Or are you going to sell them in order to clear others? You need to think about rising interest rates as well. This is one of the worst things you can do as a landlord, is be delusional. And often people have this. I always say the good times don't last and neither do the bad. And I remember interest rates from, 2015 to 2020, where there might as well have been 0 point fuck all in there. And people were acting like it's going to happen like that forever. Well, guess what happens when it is 0 point fuck all interest rates? Is people go, well, owning stuff becomes really cheap. So what do? They spend more and build their portfolios, and of course, rising interest rates come in. In general, it is good to assume that your interest rates are going to be 6%. The long-term average since the beginning of time is around 6%. And so you need to think about how that's going to impact your income a lot. How to manage your portfolio throughout the growth. As you're going to add your portfolio, managing it becomes more and more important. Not just managing the tenants and the maintenance and the voids, but how you're going to manage debt. And you need to make sure you've got your business head on from day one. Now, because I'm focused on this long-term wealth, that's why I'm really selective around my strategy and my locations. So I want my cash flow and my capital growth, being the greedy little git that I am. And so I focus on boring vanilla buy-to-let properties in West and South Yorkshire. What's really important is being able to see your portfolio in one place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on my laptop right now to show you a great software that does everything for you. And I've got a portion of my portfolio on there that I'm going to break down for you right now. It's really important that you have software like this in place. And if you want to use the same one as me, I'll put a link in the description. It's completely free. Check it out. It's LENDLORD. LENDLORD offers a comprehensive dashboard. And that's the thing that I really like, where I can input the key figures for each property in my portfolio. And it kind of just outlines the property appreciation, the equity. And for me, what's really important, because as I'm building a business and getting busy, is it tracks my mortgages as well, so that I can have absolutely everything in one place and it reminds me as it's coming up. So as said, we've got roughly about 40% of our portfolio on here so far, and we're going through an upload right now, but I want you to see it so far. So we've got 55 of our properties on here, and you can see the property values, what we purchased at, what rental income's coming in, the current balance, and when the mortgages are coming to an end. So you can see here, if I put my expiry rate on, and I've not got all of these in here, we've got some coming up in 2025, some in 2026. And so this is really going to give us the opportunity to think about these coming up. But the cool thing about LENDLORD is the way that they make money is by facilitating your finance. So they act like a mortgage broker, an intermediary, which I'm okay with, because instead of paying a mortgage broker, I can just have this one place where they're checking it constantly in the background, find me the best rates, and I can click a button and they do all the work for me, which is pretty cool. The other thing that I really like is you can put your documents in. Now, I've not started doing this, but as part of the upload, this is what's really cool for me. So I'm able to upload my ASTs, my rental agreements, my energy performance certificates, my EICRs, my gas safety certificate, and having everything in one place. And up until now, I'll be open with you, I've had it on Google Drive where it's all these folders in different places and it just becomes a nightmare. But what I can actually do within LENDLORD now is I can utilize everything and then send out documents for signature as well. So everything is in one place. Now for me, when you come to retirement, this is really important to have it in here where you can see your entire portfolio. And also being open with you, when it comes to handing over to your kids or selling off the portfolio, it's good to have all of your data in one place. So again, you can use whatever you want. If you want to do spreadsheets, fine. But for me, I think as you're building up a portfolio, you want to make sure that you've got everything in one place to the best of your ability. And LENDLORD for me is an absolute game changer. And I'm showing you this on my laptop, but you can actually do this on your phone as well. So you can download the app and get full updates of your portfolio sent to you as a notification. That is really good for people like me that's busy, working hard every single day, and just having a proactive notification coming in telling me what's coming up that I need to jump on in my portfolio. The final thing I want to show you that I am very excited about with managing my wealth is the interactive report. So I'll just click on here so you can see this. So as I said, this is about 40% of the portfolio we've got on this so far. And this is where they say that data whispers, graphs shout. And I really love that. It's a quote by Dan Martell there. But you can see here a breakdown of the total equity. And you can go property by property. So this is 36 Barnsdale Road. You've got Scarfall Close. You've got Heathcroft. But if I go over to the right, and this is, I think, pretty cool, you've got the total portfolio that I've put there. So if we look at this is total equity in this portfolio, this part of the portfolio. I've got £4.5 million. But that's at a loan to value of 57% currently. But the thing is, as I said, LENDLORD makes money by you getting out debt, right? Now, you might not want to do this closer to the retirement, but earlier on, we want to use that money in a smart way. And me leveraging that and paying 4 or 5% on the money and making 15% on the money is a good use. And so right now, if I wanted to go up to 70% loan to value, it just tells me right there, I can pull out 1.3 million. Maybe I'm willing to go up to 75% loan to value and get 1.864 million, which is typically what I would do. But that's really good to know because if I'm looking to scale aggressively, immediately I can do that. And then at a click of a button, I can click schedule a call and they'll talk me through my options on how I can do that. But you can go down, you can see your taxes, tasks, performance, but the main thing for me is I want to look at my net worth. And so if you're a little bit of a nerd like me, it's a pretty cool tool. And look, if you want to have a play around with this, it's completely free. And so that's the thing that I absolutely love. I'm a massive fan of LENDLORD. It's helped me make a load of money with my own portfolio. If you want to have a play around for yourself, comment LENDLORD and I'll send you a unique link that you can go on it completely free and let me know your feedback on how you're using it and how you've used it to make money over the next 12 months. The next big question is, when do I sell the portfolio? Well, you might want to ignore me on this one, but let me explain. My exit is death. And I know that's a bit morose, especially talking about pension. I apologise if you're one of the older people watching this. But I really do mean it. I have no intention of selling my portfolio. I find it an absolutely insane thing to do, because if I'm building my wealth, I understand I want to maybe access a bit of that, but I want to leave a legacy and I want to make sure it's protected so my kids don't fuck it up in the first divorce, right? And so really what I want to do is set up and scale up something. And so for me, I'd rather look at vehicles to release the debt, release money through debt, so I can have more fun with that money. Now, that being said, would I feel differently if I had no legacy? You know, maybe you're watching this and there are no kids to give it to. Maybe you're not interested in doing something with the portfolio, and that's absolutely great. But ideally, what you want to be able to do is live off the rental income, but it really is independent. So if you want to have that big cash lump sum, and maybe you're like, well, I don't want to manage a portfolio in my 70s. Is it realistic? Could I hand it off? Could it be hands-free? Or do I want to pass properties to the family? Or do I want to leave them a nice chunk of cash instead? Obviously, you need to look at your risk, your exposure, your taxes, your interest rates. Could selling be the smarter option? There are some. I think there's some reasons to sell. If you need a big lump sum for maybe your lifestyle, upgrades, healthcare, maybe it's paying off debt, gifting it to your kids or your grandkids, then that could be really cool. Portfolio is management heavy, especially if you're looking at student-let, service accommodation, HMOs. Maybe you want to simplify this so you're no longer interested in the passive income. You want to de-risk yourself completely and have a nice chunk of change. I'm just not the guy to talk to about it. And I promise myself that I'm never going to talk about something I don't believe in on this channel. And I don't believe in selling properties. I just don't. So I would only ever sell the properties for retirement if there's nobody to hand it to, and genuinely you're like, I'm done. I'm done. Now, if there's one man, one woman that I want to say fuck you to for as long as possible, it's the tax man. And that is also why I don't want to sell my portfolio and realise a massive net gain, because I'd rather realise my net worth and get access to my cash through increasing debt on the portfolio. You let me know what you think of that on there, because I'm sure there's a different perspective. But I'm not going to bullshit you and say I would sell. I wouldn't. I would never sell. I will always hold. I will always release my wealth through debt. But that's just one man's opinion. Let me know what you think in the chat, by the way. I'm sure we can have a healthy or unhealthy debate. Now look, when you get into that post-retirement, which let's say is 70 plus, of course you might want to restructure the portfolio. And that's something to think about. And this is the only other logical way that I might look at my overall portfolio, my kingdom, my conglomerate. Could be your two properties, right? Who knows? But I'd be looking at the portfolio and going, what are my worst performers? And maybe I'm going to cut the 10%. You know Pareto's law, the 80-20, 80% of your problems come from 20% of the properties? Maybe that's what I would do, is maybe look to release the money from the annoying properties, the one that always seems to get, I'm sorry, but there are twatty tenants, and maybe want to get rid of those. That is the only thing that I would do. So maybe I want to clear some credit card debt, for example. Maybe I only want good debt, no longer bad debt, and boost the cash flow. And that's the only other thing that maybe I would look at. So be tax efficient, think about your legacy, and think long term. I think the challenge with retirement is you can become short-term thinkers. And this is certainly something I've experienced when having conversations. But so selling everything and putting them into something else is often not the answer. Sometimes it's less hassle to get management in place and outsource the challenges to somebody else that is hungry to take it on. So that's my answer. My retirement is death. That really is my exit strategy. And so, yes, I might slow down in business, but I honestly don't think I'll ever exit the portfolio. But hey, I'm in my 30s right now. Maybe I'm spewing something different when I'm 75 and ready to pack it in. Who knows? But what I do know is that there's no need to. If you are thinking about retirement because you need the big cash lump, fine. But if you're thinking about the challenges, outsourcing is becoming more and more powerful. And I'm not just looking at outsourcing to people, outsourced to software. And this is where LENDLORD really comes in. It is a one-stop shop for absolutely everything. And I am a massive advocate, and I will always push LENDLORD because it's done so much for me growing, maintaining, and managing my portfolio. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So what's your thoughts on retirement? What's your thoughts on LENDLORD? Put LENDLORD in the comments. I'll send you a link so you can check it out for free. And I'd love your feedback if it's as good as I am selling it to be. I hope you got value from this video. It's a bit unique to what I usually do, but I think starting with the end in mind is always the right answer. And the younger you are watching this video, the more head start you've got. I'm telling you that every 60-year-old you ever talk to will say the same thing. I wish I started at your age. And this is your opportunity. If you like the channel, make sure to hit subscribe. Make sure you're watching the upcoming videos. If you got value from this video in particular, destroy the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.